Thank you. First thing I want to say is uh, for Mel and Janice for putting the days and dates on the videos out there. Uh,
Ron, let me correct you. That is all Janice. All props go to her, baby.
okay,
Thank you, though.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Uh, I find that valuable. Like, for example, we talked about the collider and we talked about that for the month of July, so I made a note. Month of July 2026. This is what those discussions were, and I just think that at some point they'll be valuable to me. But I just wanted to let everybody know that it's out there like that with the date on it, so it'd be easier to keep up with if you see a video that touches you or something you think that may be valuable to you at a later time. Okay,
Ron, she's already also making an effort to label them with a title.
excellent.
So she said when she figured it out, she'll get it done.
I just want to
That's
publicly thank
true.
you.
Oh, hey, you on? Okay.
Yeah.
You talking
Yes,
about just
sir.
like the corner, right?
Yes, I figured out how to automate the titles. Um, because my memory, I don't I might be good for a couple of weeks, but then I could forget. So the
Okay.
titles are automated, and I'm working on automated descriptions for the videos that will be based on what we've discussed. Because even when I try to do that manually, it's like trying to tell someone what we talked about. Like it's very difficult.
You don't
Um,
try.
but I'm happy to let AI do that. So as soon as I get that figured out, we'll have that added as well.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Janice.
I think it's time anyway. We're at the critical point we've been talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So this
So
we've been thinking about it forever, and now it's done.
Thank
Okay.
you.
happy to do it.
Thank you, dear.
Um, I did not say this part. It is Saturday, August 8th, 2026, 10:05 a.m. So we'll get started. I think it was Sunday we talked about healing, feminine energy and healing, and someone brought up fibroids, and we found that was more universal because I looked it up and I think it said it affects more than 80% of African women, and I had no idea something like that was that high. Uh, but I think Sunday was an awesome day, the healing that went forth, the love and the caring uh, that went forth. But we continued it on Monday. And
Ron,
yes,
before
sir.
you continue, please, did you all notice, did they do a comparison as to the percentage of females or the black females, Asian, white, etc.?
I did not. Did anyone else? Did anyone else look at that?
I can only say, when Isha had her issue, her doctor told us that it's about 81% for African American women, and for others, it's even white, it's less than 20%. So whatever the breakdown is, it's minute compared to black women.
Say it again. It was less than.
She just lumped it into black and white.
Uh-huh.
She said for black women it's about 81%, and for white and other races it's less than 20% for
Okay.
any of them. That's just how she broke it down. That's simple.
That in itself is a discussion.
Yes. Yes.
It also it goes to undergird what we talked about as it being resulting from trauma.
So, any questions about that before I go on? Because I could recap at any time. Anybody have any questions or thoughts about those statistics or anything Pastor said?
Let me say this at the end of our discussing it then. This in itself tells us, well, it's a statistic that shows us the depth of trauma that Black women have and is experiencing, as opposed to other women in this country, which means that Black women are carrying the burden of trauma for all of us. I'm done, Ron.
Uh, we carried that discussion into Monday based on a question that Regina asked, and from listening to what the answer is, it just kind of carried on. We talked about the 13 cycles of life, uh, and we talked about the importance of we can't bring balance and harmony to humanity if we don't balance and harmony, bring balance and harmony to femininity. And when we talk about bringing balance and harmony, we're not just talking about women, we're talking about men as well. Uh, Embracing the femininity and recognizing that you are, if you are truly desiring to be spiritual, then you're talking about being feminine, your femininity and how important that is. Uh, we even talked about the present day and not looking at the past or ahead to the future. That being spiritual is in the now, and the who we are is very extremely important to recognize that we're in the now. Uh, as we become light, or recognize we're light. Something that Pastor said I thought was a really kind of caught me when we talked about whether you're not what religion you're talking about, or whether it's Catholicism or Christianity or whatever the case may be, or we're looking at that. It's living in the past because none of the principles of it have changed in the last couple of thousand years. So the same thing that applied 2,000 years ago applied now. There's been no upgrade. There's been nothing, no revelation given in any of those religions. So being spiritual, living in spirit, in spirituality, we're not looking ahead or we're not looking behind. And even when we think of the ancestors, we're not looking at them from behind. We're looking at them in the present day because the ancestors are us and we are the ancestors. So we look at that. We talked about healing. It led us to talk about living in fear and the importance of not being fearful. We talked about the energy that we took back in the earth. So if we have the energy every time we fear something, you're releasing your own energy. You're giving that back. So we talked a lot about mindset and living in the mindset and recognizing who you are and the importance of establishing the mindset of Mayad in the earth. So I'm sure there's something I may have missed. So if there's any thoughts or questions, please feel free.
Grand
You're
Rising, late. I'm sorry. I apologize.
not sorry. You apologize. Go ahead, Evan.
Okay. Um, I missed a little bit of the segment, but I just had a question about. I heard this guy say God is water, and Pastor, what's your truth on that?
God is spirit, which means that God is energy, and water is it's moved by energy, but it itself is not energy. Energy is in the water, just like energy is in this body. But God is spirit.
And it's everywhere, right? God is everywhere and in everything.
Yeah, it has to be. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in. Nothing could exist without that.
That did resonate with me when I heard him say that. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Grand Rising family.
Grand Rising, Evelyn. Um, the the energy that keeps everything alive is in everything, but it doesn't make everything it. Electricity is in your lamp, your light bulb, but it does not make the light bulb electricity. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, sir. And Pastor, a follow-up question.
Sure.
Why, and I was talking to Audrey about this too, why is it that we want to be close to water, that we have a thirst to be in water and around water? Is it because that our body is like mostly water?
Our body is 70% water, yes, ma'am. However, most of us don't like to be around water. And it's not because anything that we did, it's because of the traumatic experiences that we have had with water during enslavement. Keep in mind that the people who were carried out coast of South Carolina down near what is it, Myrtle Beach, that area, they were carried out into the middle of the ocean and pushed off the boat because that was their punishment, and the whole plantation was forced to watch that happen. So we've had some traumatic experiences with water, and that is trauma that we have to deal with. That's one traumatic thing that we have to free ourselves from. But that is the reason why some people like to be around water.
Well, I'm looking at it as you don't necessarily have to be immersed in water, but just have your feet or legs or, just some type of body part. Maybe it's just me that you could just have, I just need my feet or either my legs in water, something like that. There are times when I just want to get in water, because I think I went to Barbara's house. As a matter of fact, I did, to Barbara's pool, and I just needed to get into some water. It was like I just needed to be in water.
Okay.
So that's why I said what I said. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We are we are different. And one of the differences I want to speak to, based on something that came to me while Evelyn was talking, is our awareness is different than the awareness of anyone else on the face of the earth. No one on earth knew anything about a pineal gland or light being in a pineal gland or us being melanated until we told them. You see, the ones who are Jews wear these with beanie cap, covering their head, poke, cover head, that kind of thing. Do you think that they woke up one morning out of their sleep in a cave and thought about having light in a pineal gland and knowing what it was all about? No. All of that was stolen from Kemet. And even to this day, they know what the light is, where it is, but they don't understand what it does. And they don't know how to appropriate it, even though they try. If they knew how to appropriate it, they would not be covering it. Because according to some of the religious edicts, the covering of the crown of the head with what they call it, that little cap on the head, the little head. Anyway, the covering of it is to keep the light in. Have no
It's a
clue.
yarmulke.
A yarmulke, thank you. They to keep the light in have no clue about how it actually works, and that is the reason they're trying to figure it out. And we've talked about them trying to access the energy that we are. It's not because they are interested in understanding the aspects of spirituality. It is because they want to capture it and control it for the benefit of the 1%. So when we talk about the difference in our awareness, it goes, of course, much deeper than what I just stated. And to undergird or reiterate how much these people want to have what we are, not what we have, but what we are. That is the reason the experiments are being done with the collider that we've talked about for weeks now. And that is the reason why there is continuous research on efforts to synthesize melanin. We are a different people, yet we don't really understand that. What I have looked at is an understanding of how to embrace who we are. And what I have concluded from that is desire is all we need. And with desire comes meditation. And what meditation does is removes from our constant thoughts the presence of this physical world and reminds us that we are one with the light, one with the spirit. And that's all we have to do. We read all these things, and sometimes, if we're not careful, we convert what we read into steps to becoming who we are. You understand? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Thank you.
Say it one more time, please.
We read all of these things, and we sometimes, without knowing it or unconsciously, convert what we read into steps to become who we are.
Okay.
When we read about frequencies, when we read about Kemet, when we the spiritual priesthood of Kemet, or when we read about a case of consciousness, we make efforts to become one with it. What we are actually doing without thinking about it, or without knowing it actually, is converting what we are reading about ourselves to a method, an academic method of becoming what we've read, as opposed to understanding that what we just read is a description of who we are, or an understanding of what makes us who we are, with an understanding of what makes us divine as opposed to human, even though the scripture clearly tells us that we are not human. I say that you're God, but you die like mere men, the prince of men. Your body is fearfully and wonderfully made, yet you lower yourself beneath the message about who you are. Those kinds of things. How do we do that? It's not just religion that causes us to do that, or that guides us in that. It's not just religion that does that. It is those of us who entered a journey searching for self. And in this search for self, we made the same applications to this journey when we learn who we are as we had been taught when we were religious people or when we were in school. Is that clear?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Uh-huh. And thank you. And we are different in that. The more we try to be what we already are, the less we are able to see what we already are. The moment that we make attempts to be what we are, it says that we don't believe that's what we are. See that correlation?
Yes.
So I want to implore you to cease trying to be divine and just be it. No, you did not have to learn how to be, how to breathe. You breathe. It's just what you do. Your body does that. And it's those are some of the involuntary things that your body engages in. So the bottom line, I suppose, would be that we see who we are. We see that we are light, but we don't have to understand every nuance about that. We see that we are spirit, but we don't have to understand all the nuances about what it means to be spirit. Any questions or comments about that? Is that clear with you guys?
Yes, it is with me.
Yes, it is.
Say again.
This is Vermel.
It is. Oh, sorry, Ramel, go ahead.
No, it's okay. What you said in the beginning, that is just simply having a desire and
Yes,
then just be.
just be. That's
Okay.
it. Now, I'm not saying you don't meditate, because meditation is a method of revelation also. Matter of fact, you get more revelation from meditation than you do from reading. Reading gives us information, but meditation opens us up. And one of the reasons it's so difficult, seemingly, for us to meditate is because we are looking for instant gratification. Our desire is to understand it immediately, but it doesn't work that way. There is an understanding that we are given through meditation that we are not even aware of until it is time for us to voice it or to act it out or express it. Anything that bypasses our mind becomes a problem for us to embrace it. Meditation doesn't speak to your mind. Meditation speaks to your essence. There is something that Ron sent that I don't quite understand, can't necessarily clearly articulate it at the moment. However, I think that it is worthy of being discussed because it gives us a sense of who we truly are. I'm not saying that it's definitive in what it says, but I am saying it gives us a sense as to who we are. And this is something that Ron said about the difference between spirit and soul. But before we get to that, I want to reiterate that we are not human. We live in physical bodies, but we are divinity. And we talk about wrapping our mind around it. Our minds will never be wrapped around the understanding of that unless our mind is in sync with our essence. Do you understand that? Mind being in sync with essence.
Yeah.
Or do I need to elaborate?
You can elaborate.
Go ahead and elaborate.
Your mind is the house that your ego lives in, and responses to your mind are the responses that ego has taught us, the method rather that ego has taught us to respond to external stimuli, whether it be spiritual or physical. The mind is the mind of humans. And our essence of divinity is actually who we are. The mind that we have must be synced with our essence, with our spiritual nature, with the light. That is how we purify this language of English that we talked about in the past. The reason the scripture talks about us being gods but would die as mere men is because we continually process with our mind, meaning that we process as humans, as opposed to processing as divine entities. And the reason I use that word divine entities is because gods, I don't know, there's something about my makeup that's beginning to move me away from that word God and pushing me in the space of divinity. So the mind itself is full of contradictions. The mind challenges what's true because the mind has been taught to challenge everything that's true. And the mind is our greatest challenge to totally embracing the reality of of our essence. Our mind has been trained by those who have no sense of spiritual knowledge or any sense of what spiritual essence is. Our minds have been trained by those who recognize that we are indeed power. And they have done everything they could to cause us to deny who we are or to rail against who we are in order for them to create enough time and space to study us and to use technology or science to become who we are or to utilize the energy, the light that we are. And our minds have submitted to that in a very negative way. However, the essence of our being cannot be captured nor cultivated by those outside forces that must be redeemed by us. However, the redemption of the humans cannot be experienced if we don't redeem our minds and process with who we are as opposed to processing with our minds. Does that help? Ron, Audrey? Questions? Anyone?
else? Do you see, was the mind ever meant to be an asset? If it has not been for the influence that has taken place since forever, uh, and the shaping of the mind, was it ever designed to be an asset to us, or was it designed to? I don't know. I don't see anything redeeming about it.
Well, I do. I see if you can't redeem your mind, you can't redeem the minds of humans. The mind carries in it thoughts. And the redemption of the mind is when the thoughts are influenced by the essence of source or the essence of our divinity. And then we truly become expressions of the God or of the divine entities that we were created to be. If you look at some of the things that took place in Kemet and other parts of Kabbalah, you will see how people used their minds to process what we're seeing in the other dimensions. You also will see how the mind was used to move objects. The mind was used to bring healing or deliverance to other people. The mind was used to give us a sense, a picture, or some an understanding of what our eyes see, and when the mind is redeemed, then you are truly a divine being that's having a physical experience. Right now, we simply are having a physical experience because our minds have been trained subconsciously to battle with the truth. And therein lies the struggle. When the scripture that was attributed to Paul was written, saying that we must renew our minds, that did not come from the mind of the writers. It came from an understanding or an effort to understand the writings in Kemet. Yet at the same time, the mind was under the control or being brought under the control of those who taught us subliminally that they are the gods in the earth. Are you able to see that?
Yeah, I'm able to see it. And I think you kind of answered the question. I guess I should have phrased that differently. In here in America, uh, that privilege was taken away, and that's been part of, well, it's actually the whole battle is understanding who you are and taking control of your own mind. Because that's just a powerful thing, and that's a lot stronger to me than the chains have were.
There's no question. The most dangerous enslavement is the enslavement of the mind.
Yeah,
The most difficult enslavement to be freed from is the enslavement of the mind. And all religions were given to us for the purpose of enslaving the mind. Excuse me. Look at how deeply the minds of Christians is enslaved. Christians believe that the people who live in Palestine are Jews, and that the Jews and the Arabs have been fighting for thousands of years. People who are Christians in particular see the Jews as being God's people. And if the Jews are God's people, who the hell are you? Because the one who you deem to be God's people cares absolutely nothing about you. The mind has been enslaved to the point where we are deeply afraid of saying that Jesus was married. There's long saying that it didn't exist. We are uncomfortable with the things that we have been told about Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. We are afraid to challenge those things. And if you look at one thing in particular, if a Jew enslaves a people as they did us, then they say that you're anti-Semitic. By saying that, then everybody gets quiet. And I know you can see that, right?
oh yeah,
Um, the 2 weeks before Martin Luther King was assassinated, he met with a Jewish group, and he talked about the necessity in economic freedom for our people. And he talked about the unrighteousness of the Vietnam War. And he was told by them that he should not go in that direction, but he did it anyway. And that also tells us that not only did he upset some people, but it also tells us who was financing him and who felt like they had control over him. Otherwise, they would never have said that to him. And that has been the case with Elijah Muhammad and everyone else, Jesse Jackson, but we know about that, but everyone else who has presented themselves as the leader other than somebody like Marcus Garvey, who had no control from those sectors. He organized that movement without the church and without having to go to corporations for money. So our minds are so warped, so deeply enslaved, until we say things like, if I were a white man, you would believe what I'm saying. Or if you were white, you would be wealthy. We say those things. What we're saying subliminally is that if you were God, you would be a better person or you'd be more successful. That's what we're subliminally saying. And to be financed or controlled by those corporate entities or those financiers, like the ones who made sure that Tesla did not see the benefits of his work in terms of electricity. When we submit ourselves to them, we become their servants. And now they feel like they don't need us to serve them anymore. Therefore, the light that they realize we are, and that is the light in the pineal gland, they are making an effort to reproduce or recreate it or to control it through CERN, or through, not CERN, through the collider, or by making it in the collider, and at the same time synthesizing melanin. And they talk about synthesizing melanin to make spacesuits out of, so that space travel could be more conducive, because they know that that melanin repels radiation. And if you could make a spacesuit out of melanin, radiation would not harm the body. What they don't seemingly see is that melanin is carbon, but the ultimate power is the light itself. So that's part and parcel of what I mean when I talk about the redemption of the mind and the adversity that we face in redeeming the mind. My contention is the best way to redeem the mind is not try. Just embrace who you are, and regardless of what flows through your mind, you know whether it's conducive to the way the divine ones think or process. And if it's not conducive to that, or if it doesn't resonate with you, then ask yourself why. And the answer to that why is it doesn't resonate because it is foreign to the way Source has shown us we ought to think. Questions or comments about that?
Yes, this is Angela. I have a question. On Grand Rising everyone. The mind, so when we so if I say that I am not my mind or my thoughts, and am I creating separation? And because what you were saying, if I'm saying it right, that the mind is an asset, it's not to be looked at. I mean, is a negative. So my question is, if I say that I'm not, am I creating separation? Seeming like it's negative.
Okay, I got you, baby.
Okay.
I'm not saying that the mind is negative, because it's not. I am saying that the shackles on the mind or negative. The mind is shackled by the indoctrination that we have um, been forced to engage in from the mindset of the European. That's what I'm saying. And I'm also saying that it's stronger, better, more effective to say who you are rather than to say who you're not. Because your mind, the purpose and function of your mind is to have the experience that humans have so that you are able to redeem them. For we have not a perpetuator who has not experienced the same things that we have experienced. That's somewhere in Hebrews. George probably can tell us where it is. But what they're saying is that we have the same experiences as those who we have created as humans. And it is incumbent upon us not to be controlled, manipulated, and denigrated with our acceptance by them. It is for us to redeem that mindset so that it can be what it was created to be. And that is an offspring of the divine. Does that help you, Angela?
It does. I understand it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, sir. I've been thinking a lot about meditation over the past month or so, and our discussion kind of put me in mind about those thoughts. A little bit ago, you were speaking about how we absorb information and how we don't deal with it academically, and how meditation plays a role in that. And I used to think of meditation as, you sit down somewhere, you fold your legs, and you empty your mind of everything, and that's what that is. And I'm not sure that's really true. I used to think I don't meditate, but this discussion is kind of making me wonder if I have, and I just have not really realized it. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking about or what I do. I like to sit, and I think of it as contemplation because my mind isn't empty. But things will come almost like if you imagine something surfacing in water. Like there are thoughts that will sort of surface, things that I maybe have always known but have not given any attention to, areas of my life that need attention or that need correction. I can see those clearly, like when I sit, and I will often sit like in a state of just gratitude for my life. And it might be the people I know, it might be circumstances, whatever it is. I sit like with a sort of deep gratitude for who I am and everything that is. And I may think about like desires that I have for humanity, for like freedom and growth. I may think about those desires I have for myself and my family. And then I can just see like thought patterns that need correction, or like I can kind of shift things around inside of myself. And it's a really pleasant experience, but I'm not empty. And I think of it as a conversation with maybe my higher self or ancestors. I don't light a candle. I like to sit alone, sometimes outside. I don't know, is that Is that meditation what I'm talking about?
Yes. And your
Okay.
mind is not going to be empty. Things flow through your mind, but your mind will not be empty.
hmm
But yes,
I used to think of it as this fight with all these thoughts that want to invade, but I don't have that. They just kind of they flow, and my mind wanders, and but it and I don't know, like just knowledge comes, like understanding just comes.
yes, that's your remembrance that comes. You are awakened to what has always been there, and
hmm
all of the things that are external to stimuli has invaded you to us to the extent that our memory about it has been lost within us. And the search for self is actually the search for what is in us, the memories that are always there. So,
hmm
yes, that is meditation. And the reason I say the memories that's always there is because um, our ancestors have never left. In other words, everything that you are our ancestry, our ancestors, you're one with them all the time. So it's like your mind is your memories are with you from your childhood. But if specific things are not raised, a question not asked about them, they don't surface. Well, the same
hmm
thing is about the spiritual essence of who you are. Can you see that, Janice?
Yes, I can. I can, and it explains why we have a different experience um, than others because of that connection that goes back, like the people that are still with us, and the Akashic records too.
Yes. And see, at one point I would ask to be made acutely aware of the Akashic records, but I don't do that anymore because I know I am them and they are me. So I simply open myself up. And during the course of meditation today, that is when the question came up about how do we become something that we already are. And that's where this is flowing from when I'm talking about the mind and divinity. To show you an example, if I may, of how
hmm
easily it is for us to overlook things that in our face without giving any thought to it. Um, all of us have experienced the increase in gas prices, have we not? Yes.
Yes.
The question I raise is why are gas prices where they are? Why did they increase gas prices? That's not rhetorical.
Pressure, keep people busy, like having to work and constantly strive to make ends meet.
The war,
The
maybe?
war.
The war? That is what we have been told. Okay, and I understand that oil is priced on the international market when it's convenient. If that is the case, that the increase in price is a result of the increase in the price of oil, then why is it that Exxon made 3 times as much as it made last year this time? in billions of dollars. Why is it that that increase took place? If it was because of the oil, then that huge profit could not have been realized because the percentage of the increase in the oil would have been the same percentage of increase in the gasoline. And the profit margin should be close to what it was last year, but not 3 times of what it was last year. Are you seeing that?
Yeah.
Huh? Come on, y'all.
Yeah.
Have you asked yourself that question? No, because we have been indoctrinated to just accept what is being said as being the truth, have we not? And it doesn't matter how academically strong you are. That's just how things are when you have been indoctrinated to believe whatever government tells you to believe. Tariffs. The money was returned for tariffs, was it not?
Mm-hmm. Supposed to be.
But it was not. The people who paid the money for the tariffs are the ones who shopped. If you shopped in Walmart, Walmart increased the price to cover the tariffs. So you paid the tariff, but Walmart got the money back for the tariffs. Can you see that?
Yes.
So you didn't get anything back, but you're the one who paid it. Walmart didn't, or none of the other corporations for that matter. So
So
we have been taught not to think, not to process. That is the reason it's so important that the renewing of the mind takes place. It doesn't say the heart, it says the mind. The renewal of the mind must take place, meaning that the mind can only become or can only have in it, inhabited in it, divine thoughts if it processes in a divine manner. And as long as the mind is controlled by the environment we live in, we will not be able to have unicity between the mind and the essence of our divinity. Can you see that?
makes so much sense.
In another way too, Pastor, we're not thinkers. We don't if the economy is a balanced thing, and if it touched us to the point where you had to really make hard choices, then people would gripe and complain, and they make sure it doesn't get quite to that point. So the attitude is, if I can still buy this and that, if I can still feel like I'm living in some comfort, I don't complain. Although other people are not living in that same comfort. But if I have enough to buy groceries, if I have enough to buy gas, if I have enough to still go to the movies or whatever, I don't complain because this isn't affecting me in the same manner. But we don't see the big picture.
And we don't want to. We've been taught not to want to because we have been told, okay, so you see the big picture, what you gonna do about it? You see?
Yeah.
So we don't want to see it. I mean, think about this. Regardless of how much we say it, we still believe that people who look like us are criminals because of the way they dress, because of the way their hair is, all kinds of things. That's what we've been taught. When it could not be further from the truth. In every category of crime, white men are the criminals, whether it be murder, rape, robbery, kidnapping, doesn't matter. White men are the most criminal-ridden people on this earth, especially in this country. But we still don't see it like that. Only thing we hear is the majority of the people in prison look like us, and that's true. That is true. However, the majority of the criminals is not us. The majority of people who look like us, who are out on papers, meaning probation, or ankle bracelet, that kind of thing, are on papers because of nonviolent crimes. That's not true with white men. That's not true. Yet, that's how we have been taught to see ourselves, and there is something in us that has to wrestle with that is not true, because we still are careful about being in certain areas. Yet, the people in the areas that we are uncomfortable being around are not the ones who hanging us in trees. Like the young lady, 29 years old, who was hung in Mississippi, what was it, last week? Why? Because nobody talks about it. Our minds must be renewed. Our minds must have, must be not controlled, but influenced by the essence of who we are, the light that's in us. Can you see that?
Yes.
Any questions?
Pastor.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah.
Someone else.
Or George?
Yeah. Grand Rising family. Pastor, I think a scripture that you may have spoke about earlier that relates to the mind is Romans chapter 12, verse 1, where it says, "Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." And I think that scripture, relates to, I believe what we're speaking about, because I think that we have been looking at things from the outer dimension in terms of our consciousness. And I believe that being able to tap into the inner being of who we are is what is of significance, because I think we have been reacting to the outer world's way of what has been put out there in the macro. But I think this is the time that we have to tap into that inner being in terms of being able to move with the vibration or with the frequency of our ancestors and the creator. And so we are the creators, having this human experience. So again, being not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. I just wanted to share those thoughts. I'm done.
Thank you. See, I didn't know where it was. Thank you, George. One of the most prolific ways to be submissive, your mind being submissive to the essence of divinity, is stop trying to be accepted. Stop allowing other people to control how you think and what you do, because you want to be accepted. And we have all kind of ways to hide our desire to be accepted. You will not be accepted in this society. You will not be accepted by your family in totality, your whole family. No. Just stop trying to be accepted and be who you are. Because you will not. You will not be the expression of divinity and be accepted in a society that is religious. ruthless, greedy, will rather kill you than speak to you. That's the society that we live in. And we bought into that BS about we're the freest country on earth. No, we are not. We are not the freest country on earth. Nowhere near that. America is exceptional. It's absolutely right. America is exceptional. Exceptionally racist, exceptionally brutal, exceptionally criminal, the whole 9 yards. What happens when we think, when we process rather with divinity? We begin to, our hearts bleed and cry because of the violence in the earth. And that is something we have to contend with. Ron, you had a question or comment?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So I know I said earlier that talked about the difference between the soul and the spirit, and I do. I definitely want us to discuss that because I do believe that we are in a space where those things that we are not able to articulate and difficult to even process are necessary for us to do that. Why? Because the more we talk about aspects of spirituality that 99 and 9 tenths of the people don't want to talk about is because you have to think differently. The more we think in those terms, the more we discuss those type things, the difference between soul and spirit. Is there a difference? Maybe so, maybe not. But if we discuss these things, we begin to think differently. We begin to process differently. You don't think the way that you have in the past. Why? Because the divine essence of what we are talking about week after week, day after day, day after day, week after week, month after month, is changing the way we think. And the change in the way we think is not simply changing our mind, it's our essence, is bringing our mind in sync with our essence. Are you able to see that? Is that clear? How many of you think the same way you did last year or 10 years ago? And I'm not talking about in societal ways. I'm talking about in relationship to spirit and religion. How many of you think differently?
I do.
Thank you. You read the
I
Bible,
do.
huh? You read the Bible differently. When you read it, you look at
Yes.
the things around you differently
Yeah.
than what you did. Why? Because this whole idea of the mind being influenced or being in sync with your essence is what's changing the way we think. And I know this started with I think Ron and Audrey wanted me to expand. So Audrey, I've heard from Ron, but not you.
Oh, yeah, I'm seeing what you're saying. And in relation to getting our mind in sync, I'm thinking back to when Evelyn was asking about the water. I think it's not just the water. Um, I think also it's the sunlight because generally when you're around water, you're also in sunlight. So the absorption of the sunlight as well as the calming effect of the water helps us get our minds in sync and helps us remember, helps our bodies remember, even if our mind doesn't remember. So yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Audrey. Oh, you were.
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Pastor, if I may, in reference to what Audrey said, when we think about the life forces of the elements, she mentioned, we mentioned water, we mentioned in terms of what Audrey just stated. But if we look at the wind, if we look at fire, and we look at the ether, the cosmos, I mean, we're getting energy that's emitted, to us, every day. And I think that we're more conscious now of just what we are receiving, through our mind, through our physical sense, and through our spirit. And so these, forces, life forces that has always been there, I believe we're just more conscious to it. Thanks for letting me share my thoughts.
Thank you.
I'm done.
And our discussions about it is what makes us more conscious, right? More aware. So I appreciate all the comments, questions. So anyway, are there any other questions or comments about our minds and the relationship between us and our minds, I should say?
I have a question about the mind, but it's the mind wandering. You know how you if you listen and like we on the line, somebody say something, and then you kind of go off and you start to think about something or in another, and then somehow they say your mind in another, but it's not nothing negative, but it's just what really happens or what does take place when they say mind wander.
That your mind, your thoughts are drifting to different places. And what happens sometimes is that, well, you've heard us say this, especially when we're teaching. Somebody make a statement about a truth, and your mind picks up on that, and before you know it, you're thinking other things about it. You're being shown things, and you lose your space in listening as what's going on. I know I've done that. And Ron talks about it when he may make a note and, get stuck at that place and have to catch up. The other part of it is that your mind drifts because your mind, especially when your mind drifts to things that are not pertinent to what you desire and what you're talking about. It drifts because of lack of discipline. That's it, Angela.
Okay, I got it. It makes sense.
Well, thank you. Your mind has to be disciplined. And you are the only one who can discipline your mind, your thoughts. You're the only one who can do that. And it doesn't necessarily happen overnight. However, it will never happen if you think it can. I was speaking to someone this morning, and they were talking to me about some things that they're dealing with. And one of the things they mentioned is they're trusting the Creator for something, but I wish that it could be made a little easier. It is so hard. And my response to that was, "You're not trusting anybody." In essence, this is my response: you're not trusting anybody, because if you were, then you would not be saying it's hard, because by saying that, you are the one who is making it hard. Can you see that?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, you're the ones
Yeah.
who. So the moment you stop saying that and just simply embrace the reality of what it is in terms of your desires, then, and just leave it alone. The other thing is that if the doubt or the tries to, if it's not trying to rise within you, then there's no point in reiterating what your desires are. If in religion we're told stuff, you pray hard enough and you come back to the altar and pray again. Why? Why? We have to forget about the God that we were taught existed. That God has to die before you can be who you are. Let that sink in. The God that you've been taught about has to die. That God that you have been taught to believe and to trust is a European. If Jesus,
That's also why.
if Jesus is European and you told that Jesus is the Son of God, then that means God is European also in your subconscious. So that God has to die. Barbara?
That also feeds into what we were talking about, renewing the mind, because all of that baggage and all of that stuff that has been um, placed upon us that we've taken in uh, has to be gotten rid of, and all of that about the God that we were, that was created by the Europeans, is all is the essence of all of that renewing of the mind. The renewing of the mind is almost to me like housekeeping, house cleaning. All that stuff has to leave so that I make room for, or I create space for um, more of the essence of who I am. Because if I keep that stuff in, if I hang on to that, it's like having my foot in one world and my foot in the other. Well, as long as I've got my foot in the physical uh, and buy into that, it limits my potential for my spiritual growth. And so we have to make that's the renewing of the mind, that I have no limitations, that everything is available to me. And that renewing of the mind is often talking to myself and reminding me of who I am, now that I am aware of who I am. And you might say, well, you shouldn't have to do that. Well, for me, I have to do that sometimes. I have to remind me that's not who I am. I don't think like that. I don't have to behave like, I don't have to beg like that. So that's part, and that's helped me. It's helped me remember uh, uh, who I am, because we've got to remember there have been centuries and centuries of stuff, this burden of knowledge that's inaccurate, that's been placed upon us, upon our ancestors. And so that's part of the renewal. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have to
Thank you.
talk to ourselves like that.
Say what, Ron?
I was just saying, yeah, we all have to talk to ourselves like that if we're truthful about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment right quick, Pastor?
Go ahead. Let me finish this thought, Don. When we
Okay.
when we have one foot in the material world, as Barbara said, that one foot is always religion. Whether it's your job, whether it's your desire to quote unquote succeed financially, or whether it's a church, a mosque, or a synagogue, all of it is religion. It's something that you put your trust in. Okay, Don.
I was thinking about what Angela was saying about how the mind wanders and things like that. And I was watching a video a while back because I was dealing with the same thing, and my mind would wander, like especially with meditation. And this scientist, he was talking about how meditation and how it affects the body, and he was talking about like people always say that their mind will wander, and he would say that you have to, like, basically you have to train your mind. And he was saying that at times when your mind begins to drift off somewhere, find something to draw your attention to, because when your attention, something catches your attention, you stop thinking for a second and you focus on that thing. And he would say, even if you have to find a spot on the wall, he said, focus on it for a second, and once your mind is only focused on that thing, then go back to your meditation. And he would say, because you would train, he said, then after a while you wouldn't have to stop what you're doing and have to regain focus. And he was like, it's just as simple. He said, just like if you were reading a book and a noise happened, that would distract you. He said, your mind, this is the way your mind works. And he said, it's about training it, and training it to get the thoughts and to get the things you want out of your mind. And I mean, because it's something that you have to practice daily, and it's not a one-time thing. And I don't want, and I know that some people may get discouraged by that, but it's just something that you have to work on, because at the same time, this is something we haven't been learning. We're relearning, because we've been living a certain way up until this point. And so, if depending on how old you are, you got, you know what I mean, you're not really not making up ground, but you're relearning and remembering the way that it should be and how it is. And so, regain focus, and just like he would talk about, just doing exercises with yourself throughout the day. And even with your thoughts and things like that, bring your focus onto what you want to see, and watch it manifest. But that's all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep in mind that what we are talking about is not being a monk in the top of a mountain, separated or isolated from all of humanity. That's not what we're talking about. Because I don't believe that you can isolate yourself from what humans are experiencing and at the same time be able to change them, especially because of what I stated earlier about the scripture that in Hebrews talking about, for we have not a perpetuator who has not experienced the same things that we've experienced. We experience the same thing that humans experience. And that gives us a unique advantage in changing the direction or the trajectory of this of humans, or of this mindset that's antithetical to our existence. And this idea of being anti-existence for us is truly being an atheist. Because if you create your own God, then you don't believe in the true God, or you don't believe in God, period. You don't believe in divinity. You don't believe in spirituality. You don't believe that. And then to hear us talk about the spiritual essence, the soul, the mind, the body, we hear all of that we heard all that in our religious settings, and still do in religious settings. Yet we don't know what it means. We've not stopped long enough to understand what all of that means. What are you talking about when you're talking about the body? What are you talking about when you talk about the mind, the soul, or the spirit? What are you talking about? How can I articulate that? to the extent that you're able to embrace it, to the extent that it resonates with you. To hear it without resonance does not do you much good at all, if any at all. But to hear it and it resonates with you doesn't mean you have to understand it. So what are we saying when we say it doesn't mean you have to understand it? It means that your mind is not equipped to understand. Your mind is not equipped to know what's being said. But your essence is what the resonance or the resonance is. It is you, because the mind is not one with what's being said at this moment. However, when it resonates and you hold on to it, that is what begins to discipline your mind to process from a spiritual perspective. Questions or comments about that? The last thing I want to say about this is, unless there are questions, of course, is the reason when Barbara brought up about talking to herself and reminding herself that that's who I am, that kind of thing, and Ron spoke to it as well. Those things, that's what disciplines our mind, and that's that something has resonated with you, and you do something that's not, or say something that's not or in league with or aligned with what resonated, then that's when you say that's not who I am, because when it resonated, it stuck with you. You embrace it. But for us to say it's hard, it's dangerous, it's I don't know whether I can do that or not, all those things are spells that you are casting on yourself because of the language that you speak. There are words that have been incorporated into languages that are negative, that were never there until the speakers of those languages came in contact with Europeans. So we have to be cognizant of that at all times. Now, before we end, I know we did not get to the difference between soul and spirit. However, I do want us, if you think well of it, to consider that, and then let's devote the necessary time to it that we so that it can at least resonate with what's being said and have more time to deal with it, to talk about it. It sounds simple, but I promise you it is not. And I would, unless, of course, there are questions when we are together tomorrow, I would like to pick up there tomorrow. However, if there are questions that leads us in a different direction, that's fine, because the direction that they lead us in is the direction that we're supposed to travel in. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we have questions. So anyway, I'm done for today, and thank you for your presence, Ron.
Thank you. Hope everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a
I will
good
see
Take care,
day.
family.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Peace.
Sir.